thank you for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. It is Friday, January 22nd, 2021. The team of journalists over at The Advocate print the stories important to our community and state, and we are happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear Local News Live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and on Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS radio. You can find the print version of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We couldn't bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer news readers. Today, we're actually joined by Mandy Ao of AOC Community Media. Good morning, Mandy.
Hey, good morning, Matt.
Thanks so much for joining us to read the news this morning. As you all know, I'm sure you're all familiar with Mandy because she does the news very often. She's often the engineer, and she is the volunteer coordinator for the news as well. So she's doing a lot of production work, and we thank her for that.
Thanks, Matt. Hey, if you're interested in reading, we would love to have you be a part of the program. You can shoot us an email at info@aocinc.org or go to our website, and we have a volunteer tab there. So we would love to have you part of the program. I'm happy to read the news this morning. Let's get started with local news from Acadiana. Youngsville police chief treated for coronavirus. Despite showing symptoms, Boudreaux went to work. This is an article by Megan Wyatt. Like so many people who have grown weary of living in a pandemic era, Youngsville Police Chief Ricky Boudreaux had become lax with COVID-19 precautions. He admits that he felt somewhat invincible to the virus after he skirted illness during a November outbreak that closed the police station. "I let my guard down," Boudreaux said. "I thought if I hadn't got it by now, I wasn't going to get it." The police chief tested positive for the virus January 14th. He received, He received hospital treatment one day later as his breathing became labored and his oxygen level dropped. "This is nothing to play with," Boudreaux said. "I've had a bad case of the flu before, and this was way worse than the flu. It was very difficult for me to breathe, and that's why I ended up in the hospital Friday evening. My oxygen levels were dropping and my fever was rising." Boudreaux's symptoms began January 12th, but he continued to work at the police station until late into the evening on January 14th, when he video conferenced into a council meeting happening at City Hall. Asked why he did not quarantine at the onset of his symptoms, Boudreaux said he thought he just had a sinus infection. When his symptoms worsened to include a fever and changes to his sense of taste, Boudreaux opted to forego attending the monthly council meeting, but continued working in his office at the police station alongside his staff. "Things were slow around the office, and there really wasn't a whole lot going on," Boudreaux said, "so I really thought it was nothing serious and didn't think it was necessary to quarantine." Boudreaux was tested for COVID-19 in his office after the January 14th council meeting. The police chief left the office to recover from home, but he did not close the police station at that time. About 24 hours later, his doctor recommended that he go to the hospital because his blood oxygen level had dipped. Boudreaux received an antibody infusion, which he calls the best thing they ever made, at Our Lady of Lourdes Regional Medical Center on Friday, but was not admitted into the hospital. On Sunday night, one of his administrative employees tested positive for the virus. Boudreaux announced Monday that he would close the police station for a week at the recommendation of a doctor to ensure the virus didn't spread to more people. This is the second time the police station has closed due to a COVID-19 outbreak. In November, the police station closed after 9 administrative employees tested positive for the virus. "We've been really careful around the office, wearing masks when we go from one office to, say, the kitchen area or the front desk," Boudreaux said. "We were following the protocol, but I probably let my guard down in a couple of places." Boudreaux said he is regaining his strength and recovering well at home. The high fever, difficulty breathing, and body aches have subsided. He continues to have extreme fatigue and frequent headaches and a hoarse voice. "I'm getting stronger every day," Boudreaux said. "Just keep washing your hands, keep wearing the mask. It's real. It's not a conspiracy." In other local news, Lafayette Sheriff lauds STM dads and sons for hurricane relief work. This is an article by Ken Stickney. In one sense, 60 dads and sons from St. Thomas More High School collected all the reward they may have needed September 12th in storm-torn and forlorn Cameron Parish, where they traveled from Lafayette to help people in the wake of Hurricane Laura. The group rescued a treasured crucifix from a collapsed church and other icons from Our Lady's Star of the Sea in Cameron and at nearby St. Eugene in Creole, also destroyed. Group members also fanned out in the area to provide help where it was needed in the rural parish in a day that started early and ended after nightfall. I can't tell you how wonderful the feeling was to see the boys and dads come out and rescue that cross, said Carla Richard, for 50 years a member at Star of the Sea. She said the volunteers looked like angels to local people they helped. Their efforts were much appreciated in Cameron Parish and in the Diocese of Lake Charles, which was once part of the Diocese of Lafayette. Its bishop, Most Reverend Glenn John Provost, is a Lafayette native who served most of his ministry in Lafayette. Hurricanes Laura on August 27th and Delta on October the 9th inflicted some $60 million to $100 million in damages to the diocese. The group's efforts were recognized this week by Lafayette Parish Sheriff Mark Garber, who recognized the youth group with the Outstanding Citizens Award in a ceremony at the Lafayette High School. Garber cited scripture, James 2:26, as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. The Reverend Andrew Schumacher of St. John the Evangelist Cathedral said Wednesday the boys saw Cameron Parish people weep in gratitude for the good deeds the youngsters provided them in September. He said the Lafayette group didn't plan extensively for the trip. It started with a few dads texting and a few dads taking off early that Saturday with trucks and tractors and tools. They returned with aching muscles and prized church statuary. The crucifix and other icons were put into storage in Lafayette with the hope that they could be restored to their Cameron homes or a nearby church. This month, the Diocese of Lake Charles announced it would build a new church at Sweet Lake, Sacred Heart of Jesus Catholic Church, and created an amalgamated church parish from the former churches in Cameron, Creole, and Grand Chenier. Schumacher said the dads passed along the importance of serving others during the one-day trip to Cameron, which is 110 miles from Lafayette. Someday, Schumacher said, the boys on this trip may teach their sons the value of service on similar trips. Lance Strother, who leads the youth group at St. Thomas More, said the boys worked joyfully, although their hard work was made plain in their aching muscles and muddy clothes. It's not difficult to convince boys that age to get dirty, he said. Excuse me. All right, let's see where we're going next this morning. The virus spread slows dramatically in the region. Deaths spike at tail end of seasonal outbreak. This is an article by Ben Myers. Coronavirus spread in Acadiana slowed dramatically in the second week of January with slight increases in test volumes and sharp declines in new cases. Gradual, consistent declines in hospitalizations for COVID-19 continued through Tuesday. Predictably, however, death counts are accelerating, as is typical at the tail end of seasonal outbreaks. All 7 parishes in the state health department's Region 4 showed significant declines in 7-day case counts, ranging from 17% in Evangeline Parish to 46% in Acadia Parish between January 6th and January 13th, according to the state's weekly date of test report. Altogether, new cases in Region 4 dropped 35%, while new tests increased 5%. That produced eye-popping declines in weekly case test ratios, with 6 out of 7 parishes below 10%. The regional case test ratio of 8.1% remained historically high as of January 13th, but it was a vast improvement from 1 week earlier when the ratio surpassed 13% for the first time. The state's weekly reports show test results by the dates the tests were taken with a 1-week lag, meaning the report on Wednesday showed results through January 13th. Daily reports showing results as labs report them to the state suggest that testing volumes having continued to far outpace new cases over the last week. Region 4 hospitals posted week-over-week declines in COVID-19 inpatients for 8 straight days as of Tuesday, the date of the most recently available regional census. Those declines are modest, averaging about 7%. COVID-19 deaths are quickly accelerating, with 83 reported in Region 4 since January 6th. This is a 77% increase from 2 weeks ago and the most in a 14-day period since August 23rd. The most ever recorded in a 2-week span was 102 on August the 10th. Cases in Louisiana, 7,928 deaths, with 332,973 positive cases. The second arrest made in Christmas killing in Eunice. This is the Crime Blotter Advocate staff reports. A Eunice woman was arrested on obstruction of justice after a Christmas Day homicide at her home. Laura Ann Williams, 46, was arrested January 15th on account of obstruction of justice and booked into the St. Landry Parish Jail. Eunice Police Chief Randy Fontenot said in a statement. Laura Ann Williams was arrested in the death of 41-year-old Tommy Williams of Ville Platte, who was found shot to death in the front yard of Laura Ann Williams' home in the 400 block of Corn Street. Tommy Williams was pronounced dead at the scene after police arrived about 2:45 a.m., the statement said. Fontenot told KATC Laura Ann Williams and the victim were cousins. Clifford Isaiah Campbell, 20, of Eunice, was previously arrested on account of second-degree murder in the case. Fontenot said other arrests are forthcoming in the case. Youngsville man sentenced to 10 years. Brandon Michael Mosing, 36, of Youngsville, was sentenced Thursday to 10 years in federal prison on drugs and weapons charges. Mosing pleaded guilty September 2nd to 1 count of possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine and 1 count of possession of a firearm by a prohibited person. The charges stem from 2 incidents involving Mosing. The first incident occurred on June 4th, 2019, when Lafayette Police Department officers executed a warrant at a Lafayette hotel room. Officers found Mosing in the room with methamphetamine, drug paraphernalia, and firearms. A laboratory analysis of the drugs confirmed the methamphetamine to have a net weight of 600.7 grams. He was released on bond pending state charges. The second incident occurred a few months later on January 25th, 2020, when Lafayette police officers responded to a motorcycle crash and found an injured driver. Paramedics at the scene had to cut a backpack off the injured driver, and law enforcement officers searched inside to find identification for him and discovered it was Mosing. Officers found narcotics and a firearm inside the backpack. Witnesses at the scene confirmed that Mosing was wearing the backpack at the time of the crash. As the subject of a protective order from the 15th Judicial District Court, Mosing was prohibited from possessing a firearm. Mosing's sentencing by U.S. District Judge Michael J. Juneau stipulates that after release from prison, he will be on supervised release for an additional 5 years. The Drug Enforcement Administration, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and Lafayette Police Department conducted the investigation. Assistant U.S. Attorney Craig R. Bordelon prosecuted the case. Okay, it's 9:15. We're going to take a break for a PSA this morning. Everyone should have shelter, and Louisiana nights are getting colder. And due to COVID-19 and concerns for community spread, there has been a dramatic decrease in available shelter beds. And that means many experiencing homelessness may have no other options than to sleep on the street. Throughout this pandemic, Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness and Housing has been able to utilize local hotel and motel rooms as a temporary housing solution. And from there, case managers help our fellow Acadians transition to permanent housing. Arch is very proud of their success in keeping those they serve safe from COVID-19 and on their way to long-term stability. However, the number of homeless is growing, and Arch needs your help to get our neighbors out of the cold and into warm, safe housing. Can you help today? If so, you can go to archacadiana.org. That's ARCH, acadiana.org. If you would prefer to give by check, you can send mail to Arch at P.O. Box 3936. That's Lafayette, Louisiana 70502. Okay, we're going to continue on with Acadiana News this morning. Nose goes. The Lafayette Mouton statue missing prominent facial feature. This is an article by Katie Gagliano. Questions are swirling around the statue of Confederate General Alfred Mouton, not because of the ongoing court case surrounding the statue's removal from downtown Lafayette, but because of structural damage to the statue's nose. The facial appendage was discovered missing by passersby sometime in the past week, having snapped off the statue, and local law enforcement officials and Lafayette Consolidated Government, which owns the statue, are stumped by its disappearance. Excuse me. The statue has stood at the corner of Lee Avenue and Jefferson Street since 1922, when the United Daughters of the Confederacy commissioned the statue and donated it to the city. Mouton, a member of one of Lafayette's founding families, was a slave owner who died while fighting for the Confederacy in the Civil War. He died 58 years before the statue was proposed during the Jim Crow era, a time of racial segregation and oppression of Black people. Corporal Bridget Dugas, spokesperson for the Lafayette Police Department, said the department was not made aware of the damage until Tuesday. The department does not have surveillance equipment stationed in the area and has not released official tips or reports about the damage to Mouton's nose, she said. Dugas said the department will investigate if requested by LCG, but officers are not rushing to assume the damage was an act of vandalism without more evidence. We can't automatically assume that someone purposely damaged the statue. We don't know what the condition of the statue was. Has anyone inspected the statue before to see if it was chipped and bad weather made it fall? I don't want people to speculate on this, she said. Lafayette City Marshal Reggie Thomas said surveillance cameras around Lafayette City Court property may have captured footage of the statue, but without a specific time frame to go on, it will be difficult to comb through the footage. If an investigation is launched, Thomas said he'll provide officers with available footage and his agency will assist however possible. Jamie Angel, Lafayette Consolidated Government spokesperson, said the city parish government is not commenting on the damage at this time. We need to get all the information first, Angel said in a text message. The Confederate statue has been a topic of community debate in recent years. In 2019, 16 Lafayette Parish residents associated with the group Move the Mindset filed a petition in the 15th Judicial District Court to intervene in a case from 1980 to create an avenue for the statue to be removed. In 1980, the United Daughters of the Confederacy sued the city parish over an attempt to move the statue to the new City Hall on University Avenue. The organization and the city parish agreed to a permanent injunction, stating the statue could not be moved unless the property were being sold or the property was needed for street improvements. Hearings in the case have been repeatedly delayed in recent months. Lafayette Parish Mayor President Josh Guillory has spoken in favor of moving the statue. In July, Guillory released a pre-recorded speech discussing the history of the statue and its position in the community, at a time marked by renewed conversations around racial justice and discrimination after George Floyd was killed by police officers in Minneapolis. Guillory said he consulted religious leaders and conversed with the United Daughters of the Confederacy before announcing he would instruct government attorneys to pursue legal options for removing the statue. At its root, Guillory said, this is a spiritual challenge. This is a test of our most deeply held beliefs and values. It's a question of who we are and who we want to be as a people. It's 9:20. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water and we're going to move on to some state news this morning. Right, let's get back into things. Once again, this is Local News Live. You can hear it on Cypress Street Radio. Check us out, aocinc.org/CS Radio, as well as AOC Channel 1, Cox 15, LUS 3, and aocinc.org/watch. Virus variants may complicate path out of pandemic, an article by Emily Woodruff. The Louisiana Department of Health is doubling down on efforts to increase surveillance for new and more contagious variants of the coronavirus, including keeping watch for some found in other countries that could threaten the effectiveness of current vaccines. Less than a week after a more contagious version of the coronavirus, first identified in the United Kingdom, was detected in Louisiana, reports have emerged of other concerning variants. In South Africa, a variant may challenge existing vaccines. In Brazil, scientists are studying whether a variant is causing a surge in reinfections. And in California, a variant has been linked to several outbreaks. So far, none of the variants linked to South Africa or Brazil has been detected in the United States, and only one instance of the UK's B117 variant, which is estimated to be about 50% more contagious than common strains, has been found in Louisiana. But public health officials said that might be because the U.S. is not doing the amount of genome sequencing necessary to find it. "We're not doing enough of it," said virologist Bob Gary, a professor at Tulane University who has studied viruses for over 40 years. "We need to do a better job of keeping track when they do come in, figure out how they're spreading around, and look for new ones." Starting Monday, Louisiana officials plan to more than double the number of positive coronavirus test samples the state sends to the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, according to Daniel Haydell, a molecular and virology laboratory manager with the Louisiana Department of Health. The CDC is able to analyze the samples to determine the variant of the virus, which is how the B117 variant was detected in a person in New Orleans. Originally, the CDC requested only 5 samples every other week from Louisiana. The agency will up the testing to between 10 and 22 samples, according to Haydell. Additional sampling is the first step in understanding just how prevalent different variants of the viruses are in the state. And until there is more information, it's the only step outside of mask wearing, social distancing, and other methods that can be taken against an invisible threat that's likely already here. "Once it's in the surrounding areas, you have to assume they don't stop at the border," said Haydell, in reference to the fast-spreading UK variant. "They're probably just about everywhere." Viruses mutate all the time, part of the same evolutionary process that gives rise to different species of plants and animals. Most of these mutations are inconsequential, but some make the virus more successful. And when the same mutations start showing up in large numbers of infected people, it becomes a variant. One mutation in particular, D614G, showed up in the early days of the virus and has since become the dominant strain. It affects how easily the spike protein that helps the virus get into cells can work its way in. Gary spends most of his time looking at these variants. He and other scientists have become so familiar with certain mutations in the variants that they give them nicknames. N501Y becomes Nellie. E484K is Eric. "We call that one Doug," said Gary, referring to D614G. It's possible that sort of opened up the floodgate for some of these other mutations to take hold. One mutation enables another. The good news is that a lot of the variants are variations on the same theme, said Gary. The mutations in these variants are showing up in common spots within the virus. But the mutations that allow variants to take over can result in more efficient versions of the virus. If they are spreading more quickly, more people will have the disease, more people will be hospitalized, and more people die of it, said Suzanne Strafe-Bourgeois, an epidemiologist at LSU Health, New Orleans. If the variants alter the virus enough, tests, treatment, and vaccines might not work as well, said Strafe-Bourgeois. A new variant might be able to slip past antibodies, reinfecting someone who has already had COVID-19. Potentially, such a variant could complicate the path to herd immunity. There's no way to sugarcoat this, said Gary. It does look like some of the variants may not be as effectively blocked by the vaccine. Pfizer officials have said they are confident that the vaccines will work against the B117 variant identified in the UK more recently in Louisiana. But new data from South Africa on Tuesday suggest one of the variants might reduce the protection provided by a prior infection or a vaccination. In the study, which has not yet been peer-reviewed, South African scientists found the ability of antibodies to neutralize the variant fell 8-fold when compared with other versions of the virus. This is what virologists call immune escape, the ability for a virus to make mutations that allow it to go undetected by the antibodies that rendered the virus ineffective. This means that people who have had the coronavirus in the past could be reinfected with the new variant, and scientists have speculated that vaccines might not work as well. Still, it's possible to slow the new variants with vigilant social distancing and swift vaccination. If the virus has no hosts to hop to, potentially dangerous mutations die with it. The more people we can get vaccinated who are resistant, the better off we'll be, said Gary, which is why when you see a lot of people hanging out without masks in the French Quarter, it's not good. The vaccines, based on what's known as messenger RNA, such as the ones made by Pfizer and Moderna, would not be difficult to alter to make them effective against new variants. But depending on how different new vaccines are from current vaccines, they may have to jump through regulatory hoops again before being distributed. There's still much to learn about the new variants and how they will affect the path back to normal life, but experts said now is the time to double down on distancing, mask wearing, and hand washing, and to get the vaccine when it is available. I think there are a lot of people who had hopes raised really high to say, we got the vaccine now. This thing is going to be over, said Gary. But what we need to do now is think about more of a realistic scenario that's probably going to play out, which is that we're going to have to keep on the attack against this virus that is attacking us. It's 9:26. It's time for the mid-show break. Let's take a look at Today in History. Today's Friday, January 22nd, the 22nd day of 2021. There are 343 days left in the year. Today's highlights in history. On January 22nd, 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court, in its Roe v. Wade decision, declared a nationwide constitutional right to abortion. Former President Lyndon B. Johnson died at his Texas ranch also on this day at age 64. On this date in 1901, Britain's Queen Victoria died at age 81 after a reign of 63 years. She was succeeded by her eldest son, Edward VII. In 1907, the Richard Strauss opera Salome made its American debut at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Its racy content sparked outrage and forced cancellation of additional performances. In 1944, during World War II, Allied forces began landing at Anzio, Italy. In 1973, George Foreman upset reigning heavyweight champion Joe Frazier with a second-round TKO in their match in Kingston, Jamaica. In 1987, Pennsylvania Treasurer R. Bud Dwyer, convicted of defrauding the state, proclaimed his innocence at a news conference before pulling out a gun, placing the barrel in his mouth and shooting himself to death in front of horrified onlookers. In 1997, the Senate confirmed Madeleine Albright as the nation's first female Secretary of State. In 1998, Theodore Kaczynski pleaded guilty in Sacramento, California, to being the Unabomber responsible for 3 deaths and 29 injuries in return for a sentence of life in prison without parole. In 2009, President Barack Obama signed an executive order to close the Guantanamo Bay prison camp within a year. The facility remained in operation as lawmakers blocked efforts to transfer terror suspects to the United States. President Donald Trump later issued an order to keep the jail open and allow the Pentagon to bring new prisoners there. 10 years ago today, drawing inspiration from a revolt in Tunisia, thousands of Yemenis demanded the ouster of President Ali Abdullah Saleh in a noisy demonstration that appeared to be the first large-scale public challenge to the strongman. He stepped down as president in 2012. 5 years ago, North Korea said it had detained Otto Warmbier, a university student from Ohio, for what the authoritarian nation called a hostile act. Warmbier was later sentenced to 15 years in prison with hard labor. He'd said he had tried to steal a propaganda banner as a trophy for an acquaintance. Warmbier died in 2017, shortly after he returned to the U.S. in a coma and showing apparent signs of torture while in custody. Finally, 1 year ago today, Chinese health authorities urged people in the city of Wuhan to avoid crowds and public gatherings after warning that a new viral illness that had infected hundreds of people and caused at least 9 deaths could spread further. Health officials in Washington state that And Washington State said they were actively monitoring 16 people who'd come in close contact with a traveler to China, the first U.S. resident known to be infected with the virus. Today's birthdays. Actor Piper Laurie turns 89 today. Celebrity chef Graham Kerr of The Galloping Gourmet is 87. Author Joseph Wambaugh is 84 today. Singer Steve Perry is 72. Country singer and musician Teddy Gentry of Alabama turns 69 today. Movie director Jim Jarmusch is 68. Actor John Wesley Shipp is 66 today. Actor Linda Blair turns 62. Diane Lane is 56 today. Actor and rap DJ Jazzy Jeff is 56. Celebrity chef Guy Fieri is 53 today. Actor Olivia Diabo is 52. I'm going to skip through here and see a couple of more birthdays here this morning. Jazz singer Liz Wright turns 41 today. Actor Beverly Mitchell is 40. Rock singer-musician Ben Moody turns 40 as well. And actor Kevin Sheridan is 39. All right, we're going to do the fun stuff now. How about a look at our zodiac? If you're an Aquarius, refuse to let anyone control what you can do. Gather information and make a move only if you feel it will benefit you. Pisces, be a good listener, but don't share personal secrets or get involved in gossip. Review your accomplishments and consider what's in your best interest as you move forward. Aries, your enthusiasm will attract attention, but it will attract those who want to exploit your energy to get ahead. Don't do something for others without receiving what you want in return. If you're a Taurus, check the facts before you pass along information. An exaggerated version of a situation will make you look bad. You can be creative and attract attention without being misleading. Gemini, live and learn. Learn something new. Don't let a change someone makes or a problem with an institution throw you off guard. Utilize your time and money carefully. Let's see. Cancer, work with people you know will come through for you. A partnership based on equality will help you overcome any situation that you face. Virgo, enjoy the company of those with whom you share common goals. You will learn much and contribute much as well. Keep an open mind, but don't lose sight of your ultimate goals. Romance is featured. Libra, keep your money and possessions in a safe place. Don't share financial information or leave your passwords on display. Be smart when dealing with someone close to you. Scorpio, a partnership will experience difficulties. Hesitation will be an indication of uncertainty regarding whether you are heading in the same direction. Sagittarius, conversations will lead to emotional fallout. Think before you speak and question what's said before you react. An exaggerated opinion will lead to assumptions and premature judgment. And finally, Capricorn, use your charm to entice others to do things your way. You'll gain support if you do something nice for a friend, relative, or colleague. A change at home will pay off. Romance is featured. And as always, we say that this is an entertainment feature, of course, not based on scientific fact, but it is always fun to know, isn't it? We've got entertainment and state news coming up. It's 9:34. Okay, back into things. The real deal. From Bio Chico to Nashville, country music pays off for James Dupree. An article by John Wirt, contributing writer. When singer-songwriter James Dupree was growing up in Evangeline Parish, Cajun and Zydeco music were part of everyday life. The same goes for his father and grandparents speaking French. The adults spoke French, so the kids couldn't understand them, Dupree said, from country music's capital city of Nashville, Tennessee. Despite his French heritage and the Cajun waltzes and two-steps he heard in Bio Chico, Dupree aligned himself with country music. Cajun music always puts me in a good mood because we always put that on the radio anytime we had a family get-together, he said. But I love country music because it gets into real life. Choosing country paid dividends for Dupre. He toured with Randy Travis in 2019 and appeared in the 2015 season of NBC reality competition series The Voice. In 2016, Rolling Stone named him one of 10 country artists you need to know. The magazine noted the grainy gravitas in Dupre's voice, adding that he recalls everyone from George Strait to Gordon Lightfoot. Writing most of the songs he records and performs, Dupre recently released his third album, title song Home and Away, a bittersweet breakup song lightened by upbeat references to a winning high school football team in his latest single. During his formative years in Bayou Chico, two country stars of the 1980s and 90s, Travis and Vince Gill, inspired Dupre most of all. I remember the first time I heard their voices, he said. It was one of those things that I immediately was drawn to. I told myself I want to sing like they do. Dupre also connected to the lyrics and stories in country music. Guys like Merle Haggard and George Jones, he said, those are the storytellers. Willie Nelson's Red-Headed Stranger. It's a cool 3.5-minute long story. Though Dupre sang along with songs by Gill and Travis growing up, he didn't write songs until college. At the University of Louisiana at Monroe, Dupre formed a band with some fellow students and played local gigs. His passion for music grew while his interest in meteorology waned. And that's when the music things started taking off for me, he recalled. The weather was on the back burner at that point, so I quit school. I thought about moving to Nashville right then and there, but I wanted to get the ball rolling before I moved there. Back in Bayou Chico, Dupre entered his father's profession working as an EMT paramedic, and for 6 years he sharpened his songwriting and guitar skills. An unexpected break came in 2007. Country star Tim McGraw's performance of If You're Reading This on the ACM Awards that year inspired Dupre to film himself singing that song and post the performance on MySpace and the then young website YouTube. His YouTube debut got a great response, so he made follow-ups, singing classics by Travis, Gill, Keith Whitley, and others. Fast forward 3 years, I appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres Show because of my YouTube videos, he said. The high-profile Ellen appearance led to a deal with Warner Brothers Records and a move to Nashville. In 2012, Dupre got another boost when he met Travis in Nashville. He later played the role of Travis's son in the 2015 movie The Price. In 2019, Dupre joined the singer's original band for the Music of Randy Travis tour. Travis appeared in the concerts, but because of the debilitating stroke he experienced in 2013, he didn't perform. Randy's wife, Mary, called me early in 2019, Dupre recalled. She said Randy wanted to tour and see his fans, pretty much a regular tour, except he wouldn't be singing. Mary said that Randy and I have a similar grace and delivery, and she thought it was a good fit. I'm so grateful to have met Randy and Mary. They've been super supportive of my career. Like most people in the performing arts, Dupre had almost no work in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He played a few limited-capacity songwriter nights and only one full-band show, a New Year's Eve party in West Texas. With the pending return of in-person concerts, Dupre is poised to regain the momentum he'd gained in the past few pre-pandemic years. It's not as fun when you're playing for only 10 people, he said, and we're hoping for a better year this year. Luke Letlow's widow files for his U.S. House seat. This is an article by Will Centel. The widow of U.S. Representative-elect Luke Letlow on Thursday filed for the North Louisiana congressional seat her husband won handily in December before he died from COVID-19 complications. Julia Letlow, a Republican and a top official at the University of Louisiana at Monroe, entered the race for the 5th Congressional District at the outset of the second day of filing. I know that two things can be true at the same time, she said. A person can be both full of grief while also having hope for the future. Today, I pick up the torch and share this journey. The seat, as well as an open seat for the 2nd congressional seat formerly held by Democrat Cedric Richmond, are at stake in the March 20th primary. Early voting begins March 6th. Any runoffs will be held on April 24th. Filing ends on Friday at 4:30 p.m. Letlow, 41, is ombudsperson and special projects coordinator for the University of Louisiana at Monroe, provost and vice president of academic affairs, where she also has contributed to the development of the university's strategic plan. Before that, she worked at the Tulane University School of Medicine as the Director of Education, Director of Resident Patient Safety and Quality Improvement, and a clinical instructor of anesthesiology. She said she has taken leave from her ULM job to conduct her campaign. Letlow is a native of Monroe and lives in Start, about 15 miles east of Monroe. The 5th District is a mostly rural area that encompasses 24 parishes and extends from Bastrop in the far northeast of Louisiana through Alexandria to Opelousas, then east past St. Francisville through much of the Florida parishes to Bogalusa. She said she traveled throughout the district with her late husband and that jobs and expanded internet access are among her top campaign priorities. The 5th District seat has been held by Republican Ralph Abraham, who opted not to seek re-election. Luke Letlow, a top aide for Abraham, easily defeated fellow Republican Lance Harris in a December runoff before contracting the coronavirus. He died a few weeks later at the age of 41, leaving behind 2 children, ages 3 and 1. Julia Letlow waved away any thought that her candidacy is unfair to her children. "It is because of them that I am running," she said. "I hope to illustrate for them the power of fortitude, resilience, and perseverance." Letlow said that while she has not waged a campaign for herself since she ran for 6th grade president, she and her late husband talked about the possibility of her seeking office someday. "This is something that I had many conversations with Luke about," she said. "Public service has always been a dream of mine. It was a shared dream of ours." Letlow said she and her husband knew that she would take the leap of faith if an opportunity presented itself. "I now know that we don't always get to choose what happens to us," Letlow said, "but we do get to choose how to respond. Today, I choose to continue forward. Today, I choose hope." 5 other candidates, 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat, filed for the 5th congressional seat Wednesday. Republican Errol Victor Sr., a Slidell Republican, did so on Thursday. 7 more contenders entered the 2nd congressional district race on Thursday. They are Belden Nooneyman Batiste, no party, from New Orleans, Greg Lorette, Republican of Walnut, California, Desiree Ontiveros, a Democrat from New Orleans, J. Christopher Johnson, a Democrat who lives in Gretna, Lloyd M. Kelly, a New Orleans Democrat, Chelsea Ardouin, a New Orleans Republican, and Claston Bernard, a Gonzales Republican. In total, 12 candidates have filed for Richmond's former congressional seat. New jobless claims dip in Louisiana, agency working on backlog of halted claims. An article by Kristen Mossbrucker. New unemployment claims across Louisiana dipped slightly last week but remained high, while the state continues efforts to resolve issues that stopped payments tied to 32,000 claims in November. The Louisiana Workforce Commission said it has resolved identity verification issues for 10,617 people out of the 32,000 claims that have been in limbo. The agency said employees have been working nights and weekends to make a dent in the backlog of unemployment claims in which identity verification is the key issue. Those claimants saw benefits stop in mid-November after a surge in jobless claims over a 2-week period that was more than triple the normal volume in preceding weeks, triggering concerns about attempted fraud. The agency put a stop on 32,000 claimants' payments to check their validity and implemented identification processes to combat any fraud attempts. The Louisiana Workforce Commission received more than 6,500 calls for the week ending January 9th, with an average wait time of 89 minutes for callers. According to the most recent data on its public data dashboard, meanwhile, the first 3 weeks of January saw a brief rise in jobless claims prompted by people trying to qualify for expanded benefits through the December federal coronavirus relief package. There were 15,424 new unemployment claims filed last week, down from 20,497 1 week before, according to U.S. Department of Labor data released on Thursday. There were another 8,640 new claims filed last week for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, a special federal program for the self-employed, such as independent contractors, compared to 7,085 claims 1 week before. There were 83,612 continuing unemployment claims across the state for the week ending January 9th, the latest state data available, and another 90,185 continuing claims through the program for the self-employed. Unemployment benefits recipients through both the self-employed and traditional programs receive up to $247 a week from the state. Eligible recipients can receive an extra $300 per week in federal benefits for 11 weeks from an extension in the federal coronavirus relief package that was signed into law in late December. Industry and parish-level data for the newest unemployment claims in Louisiana was not immediately available. Statewide unemployment benefits paid for the week ending January 9th totaled $78.2 million for traditionally unemployed people. All right, let's see what else we have here. We've got one more story before we move on to sports. Fantasy sports betting in Louisiana could begin in spring. This is an article by the Associated Press. Businesses that want to operate fantasy sports betting in the 47 Louisiana parishes that approved it 2 years ago can start applying in February under action by the State Gambling Board on Thursday. The Louisiana Gaming Control Board adopted the final regulations and licensing application needed for the online cash prize competitions to start later this year as early as April or May. Major Chuck McNeil with the Louisiana State Police's Gaming Enforcement Division told the board that fantasy sports contest operators can start submitting the applications February the 19th. He said the suitability investigations conducted by the state police usually take 60 days to 90 days to complete before an entity can appear before the Louisiana Gaming Control Board for a gambling license. Under that timeline, fantasy sports betting operations could be up and running by the spring, and if the Gambling Board approves their licenses, in fantasy sports, people create imaginary teams of real-life sports players and score points based on how those players perform in actual games. Websites such as DraftKings and FanDuel charge an entry fee and offer payouts to winners. Voters in nearly three-quarters of Louisiana's 64 parishes agreed in the November 2018 election to legalize fantasy sports betting. Lawmakers have since set the tax rates and the regulatory process. All that remains are the licensing decisions for individual operators from the Gaming Control Board. Participants in the competitions have to be at least 21 years old. The games only will be permitted in parishes where voters authorized it, but anybody will be able to log into the online sites if they travel to those parishes. All right, just getting a quick drink of water here. We've got some sports news for you. Cajuns still seeking Sunbelt weekend sweep, an article by Kevin Foote. The UL Ragin' Cajuns are getting a little tired of splitting series in the Sunbelt season. So with only 3 home games left after this weekend, now would certainly be the perfect time to break that trend when the Arkansas State Red Wolves come to town. The first game is set for 6 p.m. Friday at the Cajun Dome, followed by the rematch at 4 p.m. Saturday. We're trying to get a sweep, but it's difficult to play a team 2 nights in a row, UL coach Bob Marlin said. In all 3 series so far, the home team won on Friday and the road team answered with a rebound win on Saturday. For UL, that included a 68-51 win at UT Arlington last Saturday. We had some ideas going into this game, and I think they proved themselves correct, Marlin said. We learned a little bit about ourselves. We played our best basketball to date. We're trying to get better. We still have a lot of room for improvement, but I'm encouraged that we can hopefully string together a couple because whoever does that is going to wind up winning the league. Like UL, Arkansas State is .500 in conference play, but the road to that point has been different for the Red Wolves, 5-6 overall. First, Arkansas State got swept at UL Monroe before getting the road trip to Texas State postponed because of COVID-19 issues. Then the Red Wolves beat ULM twice in Jonesboro to get 2-2. They have guys that we have a lot of respect for and have seen them play well, Marlin said. They have the leading rebounder in our league. They have really active basketball players that have done a good job for them. So we'll have our hands full with those guys when they come in on Friday. Caleb Fields leads the Red Wolves at 13.4 points a game, along by 3.9 rebounds. That leading rebounder is 6'7" freshman Norchad Omier, who is averaging 12.8 points and 11.8 rebounds a game. Other key producers for the Red Wolves were Marquis Eaton at 10.8 points and 3.4 rebounds a game, as well as Keon Wesley at 8.9 points and 4.0 boards a game. They play fast, Marlin said of ASU. They have excellent guard play. Eaton has proven himself as an all-conference player the last couple of years. Caleb Fields at the point is shooting the ball really well for them. They're taking pretty good care of it. Fields not as much as Eaton. Mylik Wilson, 14.4 points, 5.8 rebounds, is coming off a great performance with 25 points and 16 rebounds on 5 of 5 shooting behind the arc. In the 2 games at UTA, shot 48.6% as a team from three-point land. And Devin Butts, one of UL's best perimeter threats, didn't hit one of UL's 18 bombs in the series despite a 9-for-9 exhibition in a scrimmage last week. So he's going to have another game where he comes out and does what Mylik did, Marlin suggested. So whether it's a three-point shooting or defense or rebounding prowess, Marlin is hoping his Cajuns have developed enough to use their various skills to produce their first sweep of the Sun Belt season. I certainly think we can, Marlin said. We've got a versatile lineup. When we shoot 8 out of 10 in the first half from 3, that will certainly help any game we play, especially when we're focused defensively. We had a low turnover game on Friday, 10. We missed some free throws on front ends that we normally make, so we'll have to get that going back on the positive sides. We're continuing to rebound the ball, we're playing hard, and we're coming together as a team. The 2 programs have split their regular season matchups over the past 2 seasons, and the Cajuns won the Sun Belt Tournament game 73-66 last season. It'll be a game similar to you at UTA. It'll be a game similar to UTA, and I would assume the way they like to play and the way we play, Marlin said. It should be entertaining basketball. Arkansas State at UL is 6 p.m. Friday. You can listen on KPEL FM 96.5. It's 9:53. We're going to close out the show with funerals today in the Acadiana area. Carol Lopez at David Funeral Home at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Marie Pauline Richard at Saints Peter and Paul Catholic Church in Scott at 11 a.m. And Adam Romero, David Funeral Home Chapel of Abbeville at 11 a.m. this morning. This has been Local News Live for January 22nd, 2021. I've been your reader, Mandy Ao. You can join us at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday on AOC 1, as well as Cypress Street Radio or our AOC Community Media channel on YouTube. You can read these stories and more at theadvocate.com and find out how to volunteer and more at aocinc.org. Thanks for joining us.